My role in the Disgusting Brothers may have started on the banks of the Colorado River with one Dr. Wyman staying up all night playing rock and roll. So we went out and bought a lot of equipment that we couldn't afford and didn't know how to play or plug in. And we started the band, and I recall it was Denny and I and Mims and Sam initially, with the Colonel on the drums. And the Colonel's rhythm technique didn't fit our band, so he didn't last very long, and then Paul the Grace came in, and we've been a five-some plus for 40 years.
Well, I remember when you called me when I was in medical school and said, Mims, I have a great idea from these river trips we've been on the Middle Fork and the main Salmon and Desolation Canyon on the Green, and I think my clients, many of whom have disabilities, would really benefit from being out on the river if we could just adapt them and make them accessible to them. So we started working on that. Me with medical and river running expertise, you with your recreational therapy, and we had friends who played guitars that we would play around the campfire starting in 1970. So we'd been playing together for 10 years. And we decided we'd go electric and that we would tie that to Splore as a fundraising application as we tried to raise this nonprofit on a shoestring.
But it seemed like Splore had funding from Jimmy Carter's administration. And when Reagan was elected, that went away, and that's when we really became pinched on the pocketbook with Splore and the money that we were spending down in Moab that we didn't have. And it seemed to me Splore was well on its way before they ran out of money. It seemed like we didn't start a band to make Splore wealthy for a while. Splore was in its infancy trying to make a hold. And so it seemed like we lost funding somewhere along the way, and that's when we started the band. We didn't start the band the day we started Splore. We were in your front room with two guys in chairs talking about it. I remember that distinctly, about the prospects of Splore and how it would look and what it would do. But it seems like it got started and was running and then ran out of money somehow, and then we came in with the Electrons and a new band. And yeah.
Right. And I was the chairman of the board of Splore for 5 or 6 years at the onset, and you were the executive director, and we were trying to run this thing, and we had brunch and auction, donated items, and then we needed to pay the grocery bill at the Moab City Market for all the people we were taking down the river. And then we started coming up with the idea of playing rock and roll at the Chinese restaurant, and it was a success. And it took off from there. My theory, Martha, is that we graduated in 1969, 68, 69, and that is the era of our people. And by about 1980, that was the era of nostalgia for our generation. And the music we played that we grew up with was now back in vogue in the 80s. And the Disgusting Brothers Band, as a fundraising arm of Splore, became very viable. And then we would rent convention halls and stick 1,000 people in there at $10 a pop to drink kegs of beer and dance to all the rock and roll they could stand.
Mm-hmm. I remember Martha walking by the Triarch Hotel,
Right.
And I'd walk by one of the doors as I was loading out my equipment, and there was Martha with stacks of $1 bills and $5 bills and $10 bills as higher than she was sitting, and it was so funny. But that's the kind of money we had to raise when we raised it. So that's the roots are great for Splore.
It was fine. It didn't matter to us. We could play to 20. We could play to 1,000. It didn't matter. We're just up there playing.
I think the thing that resonates in my brain about that when there became more and more people, and maybe the arts festival when we played there, and we had I don't know
3,000.
many thousand there. That I realized that if you're a charity band, people give you a break if you're not an excellent musician, and they're there because of the charity. And we had the best recipe for fun that you could ever draw up. And so we could play, even though we weren't classically trained musicians, we could play together. We could three chords in the truth. We could sing songs that we grew up with, that we already knew. And if we made a mistake, if we played the wrong chord, if we sang the wrong words, people would give us a break because, well, they're here for the charity. They're not here for the band. So we're not the Rolling Stones, and you came to hear perfect Rolling Stones music. You came to hear the Disgusting Brothers play rock and roll, but you're really supporting whatever the cause is. And so for me, and over all these years, from that time, from probably that arts festival we played, it gave me an idea that this is the best recipe for success, for fun we could ever have, and on the side, we're making money for charity. So for me, I was more selfish. I wasn't really being as benevolent as I might have been, but the fact that I could hang out with my pals, we could play music and have fun, and somebody else made a lot of money was just this recipe that you couldn't beat. And it's lasted 40 years.
I remember the night we played at the Triad Center, where they used to hold the arts festival, and we were the headliners. 10 p.m., summer solstice, full moon. All the thousands of people had been there all day, baking in the sun. They were selling tubs of beer, 1-gallon tubs of beer with lids, and they were all drunk. And we started playing, and they would take the lids off, and they would glow in the moonlight, and they were sailing them like frisbees up on stage while we're playing, and would hit our guitars and bounce off while we're playing. And then the kids had just invented crowd surfing and started getting up on stage so they could jump off and have their buddies surf them along
into the mosh pit.
And the Arts Festival had hired the University of Utah football team, which we adore. But they are not good security guards. And they had them as security. And so they didn't know what to do. So when the kids would get up on stage and we would be just playing along and the crowd's going wild and the kids are on the stage and the football players would come out and pitch them off, which is not how you crowd surf. And the crowd would part like the Red Sea, and the kids would go splat on the cement. And me and Denny Wyman, who are ER doctors, we're going like, oh my gosh, I see some injuries here happening. And it kept going on and on for many songs. And then we got to our finale, Give Me Some Lovin', and the stage manager had finally got worried enough that he just pulled the plug, turned us off, kicked us off the stage, and then the Arts Festival Committee sent us a letter accusing us of fomenting a riot. And so we didn't play there anymore, and because we played there for a few years, as you know, and they tried to get us back a few years later, and we just said no. They're going like, well, can't you just send us a tape? I'm going like, no, we're not sending you a fucking tape, and we're not. If you want us, we'll come back, but we're not sending you a tape. And we did not foment a riot. That was your problem. That was your fault. That's my memory of that night.
The lids of those ice cream, they were ice cream containers filled with beer.
Yeah.
And I don't know whose bright idea that was, but somebody at the Arts Festival should have got a tape from that person, make sure he was okay. But as they came sailing by, we would dodge these things, and they would miss you. And there was a time when the air was just, it looked like a bunch of geese taking off from a pond. And these things were flying, and these kids were jumping. And it was like, well, this is real rock and roll.
Yeah.
You know, we're really into it. And we were into it. And all of a sudden, everything goes dead, the lights go out, and these guys come and grab us, and they take us over to an elevator, and they shove us all in the elevator, and we're all hyperventilating, and the elevator shuts, and we're going, what just happened?
Right.
What the heck just happened? And we find ourselves down in the parking lot, and the gig was over, and we went, wow. And so I don't know how much footage or what we have of that for
we don't have footage because we had a guy who was a big
that's right.
fan.
That's right.
Who was a Grateful Dead
You're right.
fan, Disgusting Brothers fan, and I had just got a brand new camera,
You're right.
like VHS-C, little cassettes, and said, Rusty Rocket, take this camera and film us at this great moment. And so he was down, crouching, moving across the stage, panning across us, taking all these pictures while we played, while the Frisbees were flying.
That's right.
And at our what we thought would be our triumphal moment, but turned out to be kicked off the stage. And then we went back to Denny Wyman's house to watch the footage of our triumph of the Disgusting Brothers, and he'd had it on standby the entire time, so we had nothing. I got to give proper respect to my buddy Curt, because board of trustee at the Natural History Museum of Utah, if it wasn't for him, we would not have had that gig last night that celebrated their 50th anniversary, and incidentally our 40th, really.
That's right.
And it was a peak moment for us because of that coinciding double anniversary. And we would not be a band if it wasn't for Splore, just as Splore would not be an entity without the Disgusting Brothers. And it all ties back to that. So we had, everything was fantastic and perfect. We had a peak moment last night.
Yeah, I think back when we used to play out in the tent at Green Street, and the tent would fill the whole parking lot, and we would have some thousands of people, or hundreds, close to 1,000, I guess, in those tents for Halloween. And we would play, and of course, Green Street being a watering spot, there was a lot of alcohol involved, so it was hard to tell how much fun we were having versus how much fun they were having in their alcohol. But I think those days, in those big parties at the tent at Slingerland's place, they were some of our early peaks, I think. And then, and last night, I've been on that board of, it's a board of advisors for about 10 years. I'm getting ready to rotate off in December. And it's the most fun place I've ever been involved with. The people there are incredible. The mission is incredible, which is really education, learning about the natural world. And being a contributing member of that board, I didn't want to let them down. So I have been dreading last night for months. And I came up, Chris and I talked about it, Eisenberg from the museum early on, and you think that the guys would do this if we did this? And I said, I've been telling you for years, you need us to play here. And so when we finally said, we inked the deal and we're going to do it, and they were all in on the marketing and all in on with their staff and T-shirts and all that they've done, I was so worried that we might have a snowstorm, there won't be people showing up. So I was afraid of letting the museum down after my braggadocio, we're so good you need us, and then I didn't want 10 people in the audience. So I was thrilled when the room filled up with everyone in period dress, looking like hippies and 60s, and then we started playing, and we played to the audience, and they were so good, we became so good last night. I thought it was very good, and the sound was good, and the museum paid for the sound, and they spent a whole day beforehand making sure it was right. So a lot of things came together to make last evening a special night. on a personal note, I have a daughter-in-law who married my son Mark, who had never been to a Disgusting Brothers event, her first, and her parents flew all the way from New York just for the gig last night, and they couldn't have picked a better gig to fly in and see. So they think that that might be just an average Disgusting Brothers gig. So they haven't been to the birthday parties and some of the weddings, that kind of thing. So
We were pleasantly surprised by the Saliva Sisters, who are old friends, who we've played many gigs with over the decades, show up for a tribute, basically, to the Disgusting Brothers band and its members, and a roast, basically, with their funny lyrics like they do. And we got them up on stage in a surprise number that they did for us in their costumes, and we just stood in the background and go like, that is fantastic, to hear the Saliva Sisters again. And then after that tribute, well, Rebecca Terry kissed me right on the cheek right here, and I wore that with pride all night long, her lipstick print. And then they left the stage, and then I said, well, now that the Saliva Sisters are here, this really is a party for the aged. As a play on Party for the Ages, which is what it was billed. And then she threw her hat at me for being so rude, though their entire shtick revolves around them being old now, walking up on stage with walkers and hospital gowns. And I thought it was a wonderful tribute to Splore and to the Disgusting Brothers band from some other old people who are still playing the rock and roll.
So my thought was when Chris Eisenberg came up on stage and he started talking about their 50th and how we were so gracious to play and how everybody looked good, and then he said, but what you might not know is the Disgusting Brothers turned 40, and I looked down and I saw Rebecca in her outfit, and I went, I've been duped. Because I was in a philanthropy luncheon on Monday, the Monday before the philanthropy luncheon at Downtown Hotel, and there's Becky, and she said, I'm coming. And she said, I'm going to sing Gloria on stage with you guys. And so when I saw her, and after I heard Chris, I knew that I had been had. So up they came, and it was really nice. I missed Baila Saliva, the one that passed away. So I thought about her because she wasn't there, and then I didn't really catch every lyric, I'll be honest, but I have a copy of that, and they were. I can't wait to spend time with them.
The way the Disgusting Brothers make decisions, from my perspective, is that we have many leaders in the band, but we work as a team.
Well, let me think about that.
For instance, Sam is our front man, and we let him call out who's going to take the lead, who's going to do what. Paul plays the drums, and he sets the beat. I play a lot of bass guitar, and me and Paul are a rhythm unit. Or when Ray's on bass, they're the rhythm unit. And Curt takes the lead on singing some very important songs in our repertoire. And we have professional musicians, Walt Gregory, Steve Allred, and they literally take the lead because they can really play. And sometimes we throw it to the horn section, and Phil and Mike will just take it over. But in our decision-making process, Curt will have his idea, and I'll have my idea. And I feel like sometimes that I will end up being the kind of default musical director, but then other people will all contribute. So to me, it's like having many leaders who are totally willing to work together as a team. That's the way it feels to me. Correct.
Well, I think decision-making in the Disgusting Brothers band has been a collective
Yeah.
decision-making model where let's talk about, should we play for cancer? Should we play for this guy who lost his German Shepherd? Should we buy somebody a new heart? And we go we go in a circle and say, what do you think? For this museum gig, I sent out a note to everybody, said, we've been asked to play for the 50th anniversary of the museum. I think it's a good idea. They have a great staff. They're going to be behind us. This could be really big. What do you guys think? And then this is all on email. So then Paul Grace will say something, and Sam Falsoni will say something, and so we'll end up with some sort of consensus, which in this case was pretty positive. It's not always been that way. We've had gigs where we go, I don't want to play for this guy. We don't want to do that. We're not going to do that. I'm out of town, you know. And so it just is a vibe. I think we've known each other for 60 years or something, near there, 50-something years anyway. And so we don't have to really ask what somebody thinks. We kind of can tell. And so once we make the decision, then everybody falls in line and we do it. We have never, I can tell you, in 40 years, we have never said we would play for some event and then dust it aside. We have never done that. If we say we're going to play and we tell the lead, whoever the lead is, we're going to play, then everybody gets behind it and we all play. And sometimes it's been painful, but we've always been men of our word, as it were. Number of gigs the Disgusting Brothers have played over the years. How many stars are there in the sky? I don't know. It's a number. Certainly 40 years worth times, I don't know.
I think 500, 500.
Minimum. I think that may even be
Conservative?
Low. Yeah. The Disgusting Brothers' ability to pick and choose 501c3s, charities, good causes, gives us a vote in the world as to whom we want to support and get behind. And I think the Disgusting Brothers collectively are a charitable force for fundraising, and we've made selections over the years and have driven certain causes to their benefit, and we have not driven other causes because either we haven't had time or we didn't want to support them. So we do have a vote as to how the world turns.
Right, and that's kind of a form of activism, really. And it's deciding that we want to get behind this. We do want to support this. We think this is a very worthy cause. That's how we make our decisions. Who are we going to play for? And if it's buying somebody a heart transplant, we're behind it, and we do it. And we haven't turned down very many gigs because the people who ask us know that's what we do because of our reputation. And so if the zoo says, we want you to come play at the Hogle Zoo, not too loud, you'll scare the gorillas. That's what they always say every time we play there. And or the Utah AIDS Foundation says, could you guys please come play for our gala? And we'll come and play. And they raise money, and we're happy. And we have been activists in our own semi-artistic way.
There's an interesting thing about what you just said is last night I turned down 2 gigs. And I didn't ask anybody in the band if they wanted to play them because I didn't have to. Because I knew that was not our gig.
Yeah.
A corporate team building kind of, the Disgusting Brothers, we don't play for that. And I turned 2 of those down last night. So it's, that's our vote.
Yeah.
We're not going to spend our time helping a corporation build their team. we want to help others that can't help themselves.
Right.
So,
Yeah. You didn't need to ask.
right. I didn't need to ask.
2 weddings, maybe 3.
And a funeral.
And we played a wake at a guy who requested that we play at his wake at
Yep.
Redview Gardens.
Yep. In the orange room.
In the orange room.
Orange room.
The Room de l'Orange.
Yeah.
Okay. And we did. We showed up. There he was. He's in his casket. He loved the Disgusting Brothers. That was in his will. And we showed up and
Yep.
played.
Yep.
And we had a good time.
Because
He loved us, so we were
Right.
loving him right back as a fan. That's a feedback loop of energy for us. We start playing, and they pick up the rhythm, and then they start dancing, and we're looking at them, we're feeling them, they're feeling us, and that's the thing. When you got a loud rock and roll band, you're feeling the beat in your aorta, and it's that reciprocal energy between the crowd and the band itself that feeds us to keep going and makes them want to come back next time we have a Splore fundraiser. Where they go like, that was really fun.
And I think the Disgusting Brothers fans over the years have been, like a wave. We've had the Rhythmettes join us on stage. These were 3 beautiful women in miniskirts who loved to sing backup with us. So we allowed them to just follow us around. We didn't know them. They just wanted to be the Rhythmettes for the Disgusting Brothers. We would play at Deer Valley for their end of season cause, and no Splore people involved at all. And those people would rock like you can't believe. And so there was that crowd, and then there was the Splore crowd. And so I think it seems to each decade or each 4 or 5 years, it rotates and the fans change. And now they're getting older, I think. And although we had some younger kids at the museum last night, I think that that they're volatile out there, and they're not the same people every time, which means we've made big circles in different groups, which is kind of fun because when they all come together, you kind of have a museum event. So
I think we lose, if no one dances, I think we lose energy and we're not as interested. So that's the energetic feedback loop I'm talking about, is that they feed on us, we feed on them. It's a feeding frenzy.
yeah,
You know what I love to see? I love to see Martha Ham dancing at the Arts Festival and on the front page of the Tribune.
all out.
That really gets us going.
I remember carrying equipment 3 flights of stairs up a fire escape at an Elks Lodge in Ogden.
Oh yeah.
And I won't name which really tall lead singer put this together in our band, but it was his gig, and we were there and we played. And when the crowd showed up, it was one fellow pushing his wife in a wheelchair, and they went in circles in the middle of the dance floor as we played all of our tunes. And we looked at it as just a good practice. and so that sort of rates as the quintessential bad gig. And but we learned something that day, and we learned how to carry equipment up a fire escape, and we learned that we never wanted to do it again. And but it was a good practice, and we got better, and we respected our audience. And we played for this couple who went in circles in the middle of the dance floor, and we played probably 4 sets for them.
Yep.
And that was, but that's who we are. So we're not gonna quit because we only have 2 people on the dance floor.
I'm Steve Memnaugh, and I'm a founding member of the Disgusting Brothers Band, and I play mostly bass guitar and rhythm guitar, and do a lot of singing, lead and backup.
And I'm Curt Crowther, and my role in the Disgusting Brothers was a founding role as well. I started playing the guitar, and after we determined we had a guitar army and we needed a piano player, I made the switch to a keyboard, and I've been playing the keyboards for years and singing vocals and helping plan the next gig.